Hello, good morning, Manuel, Keldi, Khalif, Desita.
Good morning, Chi.
Okay, good morning.
Good morning.
Morning, Manuel. Are you ready for today?
Maya.
Okay. We are still waiting for our MC. Where is our MC?
Okay.
Oh, she's having trouble join through the link. Keldi and Khalif, please ask the participants in the waiting room to wait a bit more because we are having a bit trouble with the MC.
Yes, I already checked.
Oh.
the message.
Okay, thank you, Keldi. Okay, Khalif. Our MC Jennifer is in the waiting room. Can you admit her? Yep. Okay. Okay. Hello. Good morning, Jennifer.
Hello?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Okay. Oh, I think you have connection issues or something. Okay. Yeah. All right. Then I think we are ready. So Manuel, this is Jennifer, and she will be our MC today. And Jennifer, this is Manuel, our speaker today. So, are we ready?
yes, I am.
Okay, then Kelly, Khalif, please admit all the participants in. Alright, good morning, Bapak Ibu dan dear students. How are you today? If you can open your camera, please open your camera so we can see each other how fresh we are or mm, how tired we are after the long weekend. You can also give a reaction for us so that we know how are you today. And all right, thank you. There is Karina. Hello, Hikmah. Thank you for the reaction. There is also Fauzia. Hello. Pratiwi. Hello, Tiwi. How are you today? Bu Yuni, how are you today? Okay. Thank you. Once again, if you all can open your camera, please open your camera, and then we hope you can enjoy this seminar. And we also have Q&A session, so anything about the intimate partner violence to our speaker. So let's begin this seminar. I'll give the screen to our MC, Jennifer.
Hey everyone, can everyone hear me clearly? Okay, before we started, for everyone that is here, you can open your camera so we can be more interactive. But if you're unable to open your camera, that's okay. Before we started, this is Manuel Morillo. He is an expert in psychology with a focus on forensic psychology and antisocial behavior. He is currently an assistant lecturer at the Universidad Católica, San Antonio de Murcia, and he is currently researching for intimate partner violence and antisocial personality traits. His work often explores the intersections of dark personality traits and intimate partner violence, providing deep insight into these psychological underpinnings. So if you have questions about intimate partner violence or you are interested in this, you can. Thank you.
Could I start? So, hello everybody. Thank you very much for the presentation. I'm gonna here, and today we are going to speak a bit about intimate partner violence. I'm gonna share the slides. I hope you can see them. Can you see them?
Yes, we can see them, Manuel.
Okay, perfect. But I think that you can also only see the slides, or can you also see me? You can also see me, right? Okay, perfect then. So as I was saying, thank you very much for the presentation, for the introduction. It is my pleasure to be here. Thank you very much, Meli, for inviting me to be here, and thank you very much, Jennifer, for your kind introduction. As I said, it is my pleasure to be here, and today we are going to speak, as I was saying, about intimate partner violence. I have taken freedom of modifying the title a bit, so we are going to move from the more theoretical path to a more practical path. But this is something before speaking about intimate partner violence. I also wanted to introduce myself a bit, as has been said, I work as a forensic and clinical psychologist, and I am also mainly on my work is being a lecturer at Catholic University of Murcia. Just to locate ourselves here, when we speak about Murcia, I am speaking about this green cross here where I work in this beautiful city with these beautiful old style buildings. I am not from that city in Spain, and I am also carrying my feelings with me. I live far away from my hometown, which is called Zamora near Salamanca in the northwestern part of Spain. And it is a beautiful city that you should visit if you go to, if you once go to Spain. With this said, I am also accepting questions for the end of the presentation about my cities. At this said, I am here with an Erasmus grant, but I also have to appreciate just to, or my objective is to share some knowledge that I did in UCAM, and also to learn a bit from you on how you, especially in this case, if any of you conduct any kind of research on intimate partner violence, your methods, your techniques, your results, or what you've learned research on this topic. As I was saying, we are going to make kind of a trip from theory to practice so that how can we understand or turn into the way we understand intimate partner violence or different specific things inside intimate partner violence, how can all this knowledge help us in practice, in prevention, but also in the therapeutical part of the whole intimate partner violence context. And actually, attending to this, we will speak about the integration programs. So first, let's start with the theory and just trying to understand a bit what is intimate partner violence. Basically, when we speak about intimate partner violence, we are just speaking about any behavior inside a relationship that can cause any harm to those parts inside this relationship. When we speak about harm, we are speaking about anything physical, psychological, or sexual harm. Usually, I am a bit more interested, at least working as a forensic psychology in the psychological part of the harm, because basically the physical or the sexual harm usually are taken care of by the medical services, but we as psychologists are usually a bit more focused on the physiological harm, the harm that is generated because of the consequences of the physical harm, also the sexual harm, also because of the intimidation, the threats, or the emotional manipulation. That has to be aware that when we're speaking about inmate partner violence, we are not just speaking about someone hitting another person or someone beating another person. We're speaking about a behavior that can be perpetrated face to face, as can be easily think of, but also online. We can also speak about inmate partner violence into the threats or the controlling behaviors, such as directly monitoring whereabouts, restricting access to resources, or isolating from friends and family. Once we conducted a survey in which we were asking people about
Okay, I think Manuel is currently lagging, everyone.
Yeah, I think Manuel is having a connection issue, so please kindly wait for a bit, participant.
am I back?
Yeah, you're
Have I
back,
lost-
Manuel.
Okay, I will continue. Sorry.
It's okay.
I will share my screen again. Okay. Sorry for the connection issue. Well, as I was saying, in the end, when we speak about intimate partner violence, we are speaking about a wide range of behavior that starts from controlling or monitoring ones to those that are more mainstream, so to say, of physical harm, physical violence, but in the end, the last aim is to exert power and control over the partner, or sometimes we can also speak, or usually we can speak about former partners, not only the main partner. Uh, why is this important? Basically, inmate partner violence has been considered a public health problem. And in here, in this presentation, I'm not going to speak about inmate partner violence, but about inmate partner violence against women and against women. And this have a reason why we are going to speak about this inmate partner violence against women. And it is because this specific form of violence has been considered a public health problem. If we, as I said, if we move to non-lethal violence, more than 30% of women have been victimized by inmate violence at any point in their lives. which means at some point in life, which means not only controlling behaviors, but even more problematic behaviors. And when we do move to lethal violence, which in this presentation we are going to call intrapreneur homicide against women, or sometimes femicide, it is interesting that when we look at homicide rates, only 19% of them are women, but of these, more than half died at the hands of their partner or the family male member, other male family member of the family member. Um, which if I just give you a couple of seconds to reflect on this data, shows you the importance of these inmate partner violence prevention actions against women, because even if usually men, the ones who kill, generally speaking, the one who kills, really, but the men, when it comes about women, usually the men that are killing them are not someone they have found on the streets, are not someone they have kidnapped or raped or whatever. It is just someone who lives with them, probably someone who should take care of, which in the end complicates the situation a lot more because we are speaking about uh, being killed in the place that you should be safe, being killed by someone who should not take care of you, who should not find you, which in the end leads us to not having any place on earth to being safe. And usually this is what is going to give this importance or the importance to this phenomena in order to prevent it, to understand it, to quantify it, a lot of research has been carried out. I'm going to speak just a bit about the consequences. As I said before, when we do speak about consequences, we do have to consider a broad range of them, from physical to psychological, even to long-term consequences. But just to briefly understand this, later we will move to explaining, or at least trying to explain, these multi-causal phenomena. When we speak about the consequences, of course, we do have to make a division. The consequences suffered by the women who suffer directly the violence are not going to be the same as for the children who witness it, or even for the society who also have to take care of the situation. When we speak about the consequences of for a woman, um, I'm not going to go into the physical injuries. As you can imagine, we speak about bruises, cuts, broken bones, whatever. But you're a bit more interested in the emotional consequences. That consequences that we as psychologists must be a bit more aware of. And usually when we don't have, usually, and I mean, when I say usually, I say generally speaking, there are no profiles of victims, which is very important to say and to know, because sometimes we tend, or at least in my country, it is very common to judge a person because it is not showing behavioral, or it is not acting, so to say, as someone who has suffered this kind of violence. And if she's not acting with that prefixed ideas, she has not been suffered and she is not lying. And that is it's not true at all, because every victim is going to present their own way of behaving, their own way of dealing or coping with the situation. However, if we do assess most of the victims of intimate partner violence, what we are going to observe are symptoms related to anxiety, symptoms related to depression. Usually, self-esteem is going to be low, and if we miss a bit, if we dive a bit more into the consequences, usually we are going to find post-traumatic stress disorder arising from the specific situation. And just as a brief parenthesis here, this post-traumatic stress disorder is something that helps us a lot as forensic psychologists. On Friday, I will speak about forensic psychology, but basically, we do have, when we are assessing a situation of inmate partner violence, we do have to establish a nexus or a connection between the situation, the inmate partner violence situation, and the consequences in order to be properly judged. So usually, if I observe anxiety, I am not completely or 100% able to say that this anxiety arises from this situation, from the violence situation, and not maybe from the other situation or from all the consequences that have arisen from having reported the situation. But when I find post-traumatic stress, when I find post-traumatic stress without any traces of simulation, I can be a lot more calm that this person is suffering some psychological consequences, which helps me a lot in determining this specific situation that the victim is reported has happened and is creating a lot of distress in her life. However, we will speak a lot more about this on Friday and later. But continuing with the consequences, the women who are involved in the situation are not the only ones who tend to suffer, but also the children who witness it. Uh, there is a wide body of reasons or consequences for children, and usually they tend to report more anxiety, more depression, traumatic disorder, again, post-traumatic stress disorder, self-esteem, lot of assisted, it is very difficult to find a profile of someone who has witnesses intimate violence. Usually, they are more prone to suffer from all these emotional consequences, but also some developmental issues. Usually, it tends to be related with poor academic performance, some cognitive delays, or some social difficulties. And even which is very, I'm not saying interesting, but what's the word I'm looking for? Racist, maybe. Um, these children who have witnessed inmate partner violence, as in the long term, they are at increased risk of engaging or in experience this same type of violence in adulthood. So it is like if they were learning how to behave inside a country, and later when they are old, when they are adults, they tend to repeat it because this is learned that this is the way of treating someone, or this is the way of being treated by someone you love, which is, as I said, a very pervasive consequence of this inmate partner violence continuing with the cycle of it. And of course, if we do speak about the society, a lot of economic burden, some health crisis because there's a strain on the healthcare systems, also on the law enforcement resources, and this is something that I'm going to speak later on the practical part, the practice part. But also, we will have to speak about the living expenses, the loss of productivity, the healthcare costs, so that society is not going to be um, not a victim, but still is going to be victimized by this specific phenomenon. So if we don't see that the prevalence rates are so high and that the consequences are so problematic for the present and for the future, trying to explain this phenomenon is a must. Trying to give some sense or trying to find the risk factors in order to avoid it becomes a must. And when we do try to prevent this, we have to locate the variables that are involved. Usually, the way of locating variables is by creating models or theoretical models that help us in explaining this specific phenomena. And I'm going to be kind of very simplistic because uh, when trying to explain a phenomenon of this composed by so many variables, because we can consider social, individual, macroeconomical variables inside. Um, Covering them all is almost impossible. We have different perspectives or different theories authorized. In this sense, we're going to speak about the gender perspective, which usually tends to or tries to explain these intimate partner violence phenomenon as a consequences of the asymmetrical power between the two genders, and this would be the main source of conflict. We can move to the violence perspective and trying to understand intimate partner violence as a different form of violence behavior, in the same way we try to address uh, robbers, in the same way we try to address other homicides, in the same way we try to address people fighting and things like this. So uh, in this term, we will aim to locate the individual characteristics of the perpetrators as the main explanatory variable. So if we see that usually people with psychotic traits are those who tend to engage more into these specific behaviors, violence perspective could help us to understand this specific behavior in this way. But the perspective that helps us the most in explaining this, or that at least helps us in addressing most of the variables um, related to the intimate partner violence phenomenon, is the ecological perspective. From this perspective, we are going to consider all the variables involved and also the interplay among these different variables. We are going to consider certain levels, but also institutional structures, but also the individual system, but also the interpersonal dynamics with the people who surround me. So in this case, the model that we tend to follow, speaking from this perspective, is the ecological model that I guess you all know of Brenner ecological model that consider the individual inside a full system and inside a whole system that starts from him. In this case, I'm going to speak about him because we're speaking about perpetrators. In the thinking, all the variables that could be, it could have arise from the violence perspective, all the individual variables that could help us in explaining why someone specifically perpetrates these specific behaviors. So usually these people are going to be related, and when I say related, I'm not determining a profile, are going to be related with lower educational levels, with a tendency towards harmful use of alcohol, drugs, towards more acceptance of violence, and some specific personality characteristics as low in agreeableness, low in conscientiousness, more psychopathic, narcissistic traits, this kind of things. But if we just stop at this individual level, we're not going to be able to explain the full phenomenon. We're just going to be stopped at one point and trying to put all the blame, so to say, into the person itself. But the reality is that we will have to look at the family, for example, at the way this person relates, at the way this person socializes with the people that he or she has around. So usually we're going to find that these men tend to have multiple sexual partners, tend to uh, say that they are not very satisfied with the partner, with the relationship, and also usually they are going to be surrounded by people with lower educational level. If we do move to the community level, trying to aid the community, trying to have the community in helping us explaining this phenomenon, usually this is going to be more perpetrated, this phenomenon is going to be more perpetrated in communities where traditional gender norms or roles are more accepted, in which the violence is more accepted or there is a normative use of it, and there are no many symptoms coming from the community. And if we do move to a societal level, we could include here a bit more the gender perspectives that I mentioned before. If inside the society there is an unequal position of women, this is going to make the perpetration of these behaviors easier. As I said, very difficult to speak about all the variables. This was just, or my only idea. I know that there is a lot of text here, but my main idea or what I wanted you to take from this slide is that when we try to explain a phenomenon such as intimate partner violence, we should avoid simplistic explanations and we do need to cover all the variables because remember, we are speaking about psychology. Psychology is not as horoscope in which being a Scorpio is going to lead me doing whatever. Psychology is about being able to locate all the variables involved in a behavior and trying to explain it, prevent it, whatever we want to do with all those variables. But failing into simplistic explanations is going to generate a decrease in the logic behind psychology. So when we do speak about intimate partner violence, we do have to consider a lot of different variables explaining this behavior. And not only variables attending to the perpetrator, but also variables attending to the victim. So that when you're saying there are some variables that will make someone become a victim, I am saying that, of course. I am not re-victimization, I am not generating any secondary victimization, I am just trying to keep locating the variables that will generate or that will make someone be more prone of being a victim. In this case, we can speak about similar social or community level variables involved, and even similar relational and family variables in terms of lower economic or emotional support, lack of support services. When we do have someone who is not able to work for themselves, when we do have someone who is not able to have some economic autonomy, that person is going to be a lot more dependent, is going to need a lot more the person who is by their side. Basically, making them emotional or economic dependent of the perpetrator. So maybe trying to address some of the questions arise before the seminar when we do speak of how if this person was answering this math, why didn't she went out? Why didn't she exited that situation? Well, because maybe there is no exit, and we don't have to consider that. But maybe this person is um, uh, presents so much emotional or economic dependency of the perpetrator that they are not able to leave that situation by their own and that they need some community or social help. And if they do not have that because, as I said, they are living in a situation in which they cannot access to other resources, if they just want to eat, if they just want to have any so to say, they will have to stay in that violent situation. So that variables involved in the victimization are also going to be something to consider when we are trying to take care of someone who is suffering from this situation. Does this person have any other resources, or is this person completely alone with the person who is victimizing them? Because a lot of times this is going to happen. Another part of the, as I said, of the inmate partner violence constellation is that the perpetrator tends to isolate the woman. And when the woman is isolated, and the woman is not able to look for other resources, for other support services for herself. So in the end, she is completely alone inside this situation, inside this pervasive situation. And if we look at the individual level, continuing with this objective of understanding why they stay and they do not leave, we can look about to other cognitive variables explaining this. And I guess that most of you have learned about learned helplessness in your psychology courses, I hope. But basically, when we do speak about learned helplessness, is that we learn that we cannot do anything to change our situation. But even if I try very hard, continuing with the example of the partner, if I try very hard to stop being victimized, and it's I am victimized again, I learn that no matter how I try, no matter what I try, no matter what I do, I will keep being victimized. So that in the end, I am going to be faced in some sort of way that I am not even going to try anything. I am not even going to look for protection outside. I am not going to look for support. I am not going to look for any other resources. But in the end, it is just generating or making me a lot more vulnerable towards this emotional and economic dependency of the perpetrator. So that I am not living not because I want to, because I want to stay here. I am not living because I do not have any other sort of living, any other way of living. So that this is the only way that I can live, that I have to, that I can survive. And even if I have witnessed this during my childhood, but you know that this is the way of living. So it doesn't make any sense for me to go outside trying to find other other situations or other different style of living. As I said, very difficult to measure all the variables involved in the victimization process. But again, I just wanted you to consider that it is not only some individual variables, some personality traits, some emotional dependency or things like that, but also the interplay of all these variables inside the relationship. And with this, I hope that you have understood it a bit. If not, later I will be delighted in answering any of your questions. I wanted to move to the second part of the theoretical section, in which I am going to speak a lot more about some researches that I have carried with my team, and they were with the purpose of preventing the intimate partner homicides against women. So our aim was to differentiate between lethal and non-lethal victims and lethal and non-lethal perpetrators, so that if we were able to find any differences in these two big groups, we could try to, or we would be able to develop some preventive strategies in order to avoid inmate partner homicides. In this case, this comes, or the whole explanation, I'm going to leave some studies around here, and this one comes um, from this from this research, in which the objective was, as the title said, no more women killed in Spain. The objective of this was trying to locate all the variables involved in inmate partner homicide or femicide, and trying to compare them with those that appeared in intimate partner violence. So understanding intimate partner violence as something that is completely, uh, so to say, or simplistically saying completely wrong, and understanding that homicide was even worse, so that we were trying to avoid it. In this case, what we did was an on-field study in which we were nothing door to door to do in-depth interviews with inmate partner violence perpetrators, inmate partner violence victims, all the context. So if we could interview their family, we would also, if we could interview their children, we would also, if we could interview the hairdresser that tends to dress a punk, we would also interview the hairdresser in order to have all the info or to get all the information we could about the situation, but not only in partner violence cases, but also in partner homicide cases. So that we went to prison, we went to the jails to interview the perpetrators of the homicide, just to assist a lot of different variables to have some information from them. In the case of the victims, as they were killed, we couldn't interview them, but we use the psychological autopsy so that we interview the whole context, the whole family, as I said, the whole research, the bartender, whoever had ever been in contact with this person in order to locate all the variables and the psychological variables that might affect her in this specific situation. We did this along all the Spain because it was in collaboration with a lot of different universities in Spain, and in the end, we reached 171 intimate partner homicide cases, full cases, so that the perpetrator participated, uh, not the victim, but the kids of the victim fully participated. So that maybe in this case, we were just accepting, or inside this 171, we were just accepting those in which we had full information. So maybe more than 4 people around the victim interviewed so that we could have some individual agreement and we were not only relying on the answers provided by one person. If the perpetrator didn't want to participate, that case was completely discarded because we could not assess someone without having that person in front. Moreover, when it is or when we are speaking about the perpetrator, but a lot of biases, uh, cognitive biases can appear in the people who have been victimized by them. And in the second phase, as kind of the control group, we use 210 in the plasma violence cases in which we mostly interview the perpetrator and the victim. And in case that they have a family wanted to participate, or in the case they had some children, we were also interviewing them. So that in the end, we obtained a lot of information. I was part of these interviews. I interviewed myself more than 30 cases, considering perpetrators and victims. And it took us, each of the interviews took us around 2 hours or so. And later we were filling a template in which we were checking more than 200, 250 different variables. So that we considered a lot of information and we didn't stop in the qualitative part of that information, but we also tried to quantify it in order to make it useful. So that in the end, we would have a lot of information among independent homicide situation and independent violence situation. So that we should combine them in order to differentiate them, to see which variables are different between ones and the others. Now I'm just going to give you 10 seconds to think what about what we have found. Do you think that there were a lot of differences, that there were not that many differences, that inmate partner homicides is just kind of the worst outcome of inmate partner violence, or if they are different phenomena? Right. The results here, there is a very interesting study conducted by some of my colleges in which they try to locate the typology, because usually when we do a study of crimes, we try to profile the criminal, and the reality is that these criminals are very heterogeneous. So if we just go and see or address the variables involved in the perpetration of inmate partner violence, we are going to observe several different profiles of criminals. Some of them we can try to compare them, but it is very difficult. The reality is that there is no one specific profile, or this is at least what I want you to remember, and there is no one specific profile of someone who perpetrates these behaviors. We can fail in the cognitive bias of thinking, no, the person who perpetrates intimate partner violence is that one with a lot of gender stereotypes, with some cognitive biases towards gender, and with who is so to say. Then the reality is that this is just going to be one profile. We are also going to have the profile of someone who is very violent and who lives whoever is in front of him, when he's at home, he moves, so to say, his wife. Or we could have the profile of someone who is enraged or who is very unstable, and that again would be anyone when the person who has in front is a wife or someone who is very dependent, which in the end is going to be a lot more related with that person who tends to present some cognitive biases. So the reality behind these criminal profiles is very wide. It is very difficult to locate um, on a specific profile of inmate partner violence perpetrator or on a specific profile of inmate partner homicide perpetrator. But when we try to differentiate them, when we observe all these variables that we were assessing, um, we found some specific differences. Were in this article, which is written in Spanish, but also have an extended summary in English, so that you can that you can read it. And by comparing them in more than 40, more than 50 variables, we found some differences between inmate partner homicide perpetrators and inmate partner violence perpetrators. Usually, those who committed homicide tended to be older, but which is really the social demographic. And the reality is that usually we tended to find a lot more stressors. Usually, the people who decided to commit homicide were under the process of separation. So if you are not going to be with me, you are not going to be with anybody else. Usually, lack of social support, they didn't have anyone to speak about the situation. They didn't have anyone to rely on and to release this stress. So in the end, all the situation was generating a lot more stress, or at least this is what they told us. Hmm. Which is interesting is that those who were not homicides, those who only committed violent behaviors, were more prone to criminal tendencies and more prone to consume drugs. So that those who killed their wives or their former partners, um, those that killed their wives or their former partners, didn't or were not inside society, so to say, were not criminals, were not on drugs, and all the associated problems that drugs may bring, but those who just committed violence, those who just beat it, those who just uh, perpetrate any kind of psychological, or sexual violence, were more prone to these criminal tendencies, contrary to uh, one might think. But usually we tend to observe similarities in social demographics, low socioeconomic level, also family of history abuse or dysfunctional family, some gender biases. So that gender biases were not helping us into discriminating who was going to kill their wife and who was not going to do that. Family history was not helping us. Other social demographics were not helping us. The criminal tendencies were helping us in saying this person is not going to kill. If they are engaging in some other criminal situation, this person is not going to kill their wife. If this person is older, it is more likely to kill their wife. If this person is under more stresses, this person is also likely to kill their wife. Of course, they are simplifying the research a lot, but just locating the most important differentiating variables. We can also do the same, and we did also do the same with the victims. In this case, we did something a bit more complex. This one is published fully in English, and we tried to locate some typologies based on well, it is, I don't want to delve into statistics, but we did a latent profile analysis trying to combine all these different variables and generate different profiles of victims, trying to aim to distinguish between those who were victimized and those who were just for killed. And we were more or less able to locate these different profiles. But again, as there are so many variables involved, it is very difficult to have these heterogeneous profiles so that the reality is that those who were killed and those who were just violently victimized tended to share a lot of socioeconomic variables and tended to share a lot of individual variables. Usually, we were going to observe similar levels of substance abuse and in a lot of variables, but those who were killed tended to present lower socioeconomic and educational levels and more alcohol abuse, probably to coping with this situation. Usually they were coming from unstructured families, so that the economic dependency towards the aggression was full, that they could not escape, they could not leave that situation. As I said, as it was observed before with the perpetrators, they were in the process of separating from the aggressor. Again, this variable of or you are with me or you are not going to be with anybody. And if we just see those who tend to suffer from violence and not from homicide, they tend to be younger, they tend to be more isolated and lonely. And usually, what it was interesting that we observed is that they tended to be victimized multiple times to the point that even they have filed a complaint and they have withdrawn the complaint. So imagine that you have decided to go to the police to file a complaint and the after you go to the police to withdraw that complaint. This means that there is something ongoing there. When you have realized that your situation is not a good situation, not even speaking with your friends, that you're having a bad time, that you're not being happy, even going to the police because something illegal is happening to you, and after the day you decide to withdraw the complaint. So that there is a lot of emotional instability there, that there is a lot of dependency, emotional dependency, and maybe even economic dependency with the perpetrator. So but in the end, locating all these variables is also going to help us in understanding how or why this can happen. And as I'm going to start on these references, I wanted also to show you research inside this whole project that we conducted on differentiating personality traits between legal and non-legal perpetrators and victims. In this case, the most interesting findings were those um, between the perpetrators, in which we observe that the homicide, those that committed homicide, tended to be less emotionally stable, which in the end kind of makes sense that we observe technical criticism there. Also, physical decisions, so being more aggressive, less empathetic, being more impulsive, acting bizarrely, this kind of weird way of acting. And they were also lower in extroversion. So they tend to be recluded for themselves and then to have less social interactions, lower in them, and more interested in their own thoughts and in their own feelings. Well, in this case, the seed was bad, and I have to say, well, we wanted to do this because we kind of study a lot in personality as it was mentioned at the beginning, so we wanted to know a bit more of their personality. The reality is that we conducted this assessment using an indirect way of evaluating personality. We do know that for evaluating personality, usually self-reports are the main tool used. In this case, we didn't want them to tell us about their personality, but we wanted to discern we wanted to locate it for ourselves. So along this 2 hours interview, we were trying to gain some keys from these specific personality traits. And this is what we found. Of course, that is not perfect, but and I don't want to bore you, but for this, we conducted this study that I am showing you here is composed by two studies, one in which we were assessing ourselves on our indirect assessments, and the second one that was on trying to assess these perpetrators. And in the end, we observed that we did quite good assessments, quite good indirect personality assessments, and that the differences found were really convincing with the previously found on the lead system. So that the idea is that still we are able to see some differences in personality in homicides and perpetrators. We did also found some differences in personality between perpetrators and victims of the different typologies, but not among the between the victims. So that victims, speaking of personality, victims of violence are similar to victims of homicide, but perpetrators of violence are not similar to perpetrators of homicide. So this is, again, giving us some more information in order to develop preventive strategies or even reintegration into society therapies. So that if we are able to differentiate, to locate the differences in the variables, we will be able to specifically address the points that we have to modify for not this happening again. So within this theory, I'm going to move to
I'm
a brief
sorry,
yes.
Manuel. I'm truly sorry for cutting you. Uh, I'm sometimes having difficulties to hear what you said, especially when you move away from your laptop or
Okay,
computer.
okay.
And
Sorry.
and yeah, and please help us to maybe speak a bit slower. I'm sorry for my
Okay.
elementary skill in English.
No. Okay, sorry. Okay,
Thank you, thank you.
I will speak slower and I will approach the
Yeah,
camera. Maybe I can try to unplug my
yeah, yeah.
earphones. Can you hear me better now?
Can you try again, Manuel?
Can you hear me better now or is it worse?
It's better, so much better now.
Okay, then probably it was because of the earplugs. Okay, then I will
Thank you.
speak without and try to speak slower. Sorry if you have not
No.
understand any of
No,
the
no, no, no.
parts,
It's
but
okay, it's
later
okay.
we can go back to any of the parts if you are interested in them.
Yeah.
And as I said, this is a smaller part that is briefer, but I just wanted to tell you because I've been speaking about a lot of different data variables involved, a lot of different things like this, but how are all this information used in the practice? How can we serve by all the research that we have conducted? In this sense, eh, I am going to give you an example of the Spanish situation of the tools developed from this specific um, research, aiming to differentiate between violent perpetrators and homicides. From the data that I have presented you and in combination with others collected by police officers with real cases and using longitudinal studies as those that I am showing you here, uh, various tools have been developed. And the aim of developing these tools was to first predicting recidivism. So whenever a woman files a complaint on their partner, we are able to know if they are at heightened risk of being killed or if they are at heightened risk of being victimized again. So the idea is that when a woman demand her partner or her former partner, the police will complete based on the variables that we have located that help us in explaining intimate partner violence, in explaining who is going to being victimized again, in explaining who is more prone to be killed, is going to complete the risk assessment tool, the VPR is a name in Spanish, and from this VPR, recidivism risk level is going to be obtained. So once the women file the complaint, the police will put some checks on the tool and attending to the checks on the variables that they have located to appear in that specific case, we are going to obtain a risk level, which is going to be or an appreciated risk level, so that this person is not going to being re-victimized. Low risk level, there is some possibility of this person of being re-victimized. Medium, high, and extreme. It is very likely that this person is going to suffer violence again from the person she is demanding. Additionally, because of these specific variables that we located in these studies, the VPRH was developed in order to assess risk of extreme violence, signifying that this specific case meets the criteria for homicide, so that if all these variables are checked, it is very likely that this person is going to be killed by their partner or former partner. So attending to the level that this tool gives us, more or less resources are going to be allocated in protecting the victim. So if low level is appreciated, the victim is just going to receive a phone call from the officers once a week, asking for her situation or if anything has changed. But if, for example, an extreme level has been found in this instrument, we are going to put a full patrol 24 hours a day in front of the house of the victim in order to avoid the person of being killed or of being re-victimized again. So that in the end, attending to the results of the tool, in practice, we are using them to allocate more or less resources to protect the victim. When we move to the statistical and again the research related part, we have to test the predictive capacity of these tools. So if these tools are able to predict, in fact, if these tools are valid in predicting who is going to be victimized. And I don't want to delve that much into these statistics, in this area under the curve statistics, but just to tell that the prediction rates are very good for this kind of tools, so that we were finding moderate to large effects in the prediction of these specific behaviors. It was very interesting that in this article, in which what was done was just trying to locate the specific variables that were related to homicide, when we were using this tool, the area under the curve was of 0.80, a very good prediction rate. It was a large effect, but if we used that same variables just for trying to predict violence and not homicide, we were just finding an area under the curve of 0.54, which is almost a random effect. So if I, without knowing anything about the case, say this person has to be protected, or this person doesn't need protection, so that there are some specific variables that help us a lot in locating who is going to be more prone towards homicide and who is not. It is also worth mentioning that these studies are kind of pervasive because they can be done only in with a retrospective point of view, so that I locate some past cases that have not been protected and I try to locate the specific variables that help me in predicting them. Because if I am finding an extreme probability of being killed, I am going to locate a lot of resources, which in the end leads to the situation that this person is not killed. Is our tool not predicting well? Or it is because of the resources that we have allocated there, the ones that have made the victim not being killed? So we can only use these risk prevention tools or test these risk prevention tools with past cases, those that have not been protected. Because if we are protecting them, we are already including a confounding variable that it is completely affecting our outcome variable. But in the end, we did find, with all the variables that I mentioned before, we did find very good rates of prevention, of prediction with these tools. And this is the Spanish situation, and I just wanted to make a brief note about some other tools that are available with this same purpose and that have been built following similar procedures to the one that I have showed you, that are used internationally. The most known one is the SARA, the Spousal Assault Risk Assessment Guide, and it is something very similar in which it is the evaluator, the one that checks the different variables that are present in the case. With only 20 items, it is able to predict a lot, or to predict very good. In this case, since the SARA has been tested internationally with a lot of different studies, the area under the curve that has been found has been between medium to large effect, between 0.52 to 72, and some other studies have found even larger effects. Usually it includes, well, not usually, SARA includes a variety of dynamic or static factors related to both general violence and inmate partner violence, which in the end can help us not only in predicting who is going to re-victimize someone again, but also who is changing under a treatment, who is changing under some therapy sessions. Because in the end, when we are conducting a treatment, when we are conducting some therapy on a perpetrator, what we want is that this person does not victimize someone again. So that the idea is that we need something to test that this person is not going to do it. So in the end, we also have this revised version of the SARA, which indeed add items about victims' vulnerability. As we saw with the VPR, the previous instrument, we were also including variables related to the victim that helped us in predicting who was going to be victimized and who was going to be more prone to perpetrate again, because indeed we are speaking about a anti-addict phenomenon in which two parts are involved. It is not only the perpetrator, the one who generates some kind of behaviors inside the situation, it is also the victim there. So we will have to look at the different variables. And again, there are a lot of different tools. We do also have the Be Safer, the ODARA, more or less all of them rely on the same assumptions, and we can use them for prediction and also for observing therapy change. And I wanted to finish this seminar with some information about reintegration programs, because at least sometimes in Spain, it is discussed or it is argued that these programs are not effective because people tend to commit the crime again. And I am just going to speak about my own experience in this case, because I worked for a year and a half or so conducting these specific reintegration programs. So I am going to tell you about my experience and how I live it. First, a bit of the data, a bit of some theoretical data on it. Again, if we look at the meta-analysis, what we find is that not very high effects are found on reintegration rates, but the reality is that there are a lot of variables involved in, again, in if a therapy is working or not. We do have first to consider the high dropout rates in most of the studies, usually between 40 and 80%. People are not there because they want to change. People are there because a judge have told them to be there. So usually, as they are not in a therapeutical, clinical, normal session, they tend to drop out. But of those who stay, the reality is that, as I was writing here, we cannot apply a treatment, the same treatment for all of them, because remember, we have seen that the male perpetrators are very heterogeneous, so that different variables are going to be the variables that will generate the specific situation. So we will have to address the specific variables that are maintaining the violence. And in this sense, the principles of the risk, need, responsibility, way of acting have to be applied, which basically means trying to locate the variables and trying to locate the risk factors on each specific case and address them in order not to happen again. We may think, okay, so gender biases are going to be a variable that will affect them all. So low empathy is another variable that will affect them all. If we just create a treatment to address lower empathy rates, okay, so let's work on activities, let's work on some dynamics on increasing empathy. And that is going to work, but that is going to work only for those with lower empathy rates, but not for those who already have high empathy rates, but that the variables that are generating the problem are maintaining. So if we try to address the specific variables that are generating this situation, we observe that there is a decrease in the inmate partner violence situations of around 75% of the cases, so that they really work. My idea, or what I want you to remember, is that they really work, but we have to tailor the treatments to the specific risk variables in each of the offenders, because it is not a one-size-fits-all strategy or prevention strategy. It is about designing specific treatments for the specific perpetrators. And attending to this, as I was saying, I have participated in 2 full programs with around 16 people at the beginning, and because of this high dropout rates, 9 to 12 at the end in both of them, and only weekly sessions of 1 hour and a half. I have to be honest with you, I have not been able to conduct a follow-up on them because it was not possible, but I have a very, very good experience with them. And I will try to locate you in my situation. So let's try to imagine yourself that you have to be the therapist of the upcoming group. First, you are going to receive the therapist handbook with the topics that you are going to address and specifically the techniques that you are going to use. Of course, as you are a very good therapist, you are going to study it. You are going to see all the variables that you are touching, you are going to see how to touch them, and you will see all the units. You are going to observe that you will have to invest a couple of weeks working on the motivation to change. You will have to invest a week working on empathy. You will have to invest another week or a couple of weeks working on cognitive distortions, responsibility assumption, physical and psychological violence. After this, what I thought the first time I read it, it was, well, this looks quite interesting and achievable. If I do all these activities, my convicts are going to assume their responsibility, are going to learn how to deal with all their emotional issues. The reality was very different. We couldn't make them go through all the units in the way that the handbook was telling us to do. So I wanted you to use 5 seconds of your time, or if you want to write on the chat on this, what problems do you think you might encounter during these sessions? So that we know what we have to do and it is working on all these variables, but do you think we are going to find any problems, or that it is going to be easy to generate all these sessions? Gary is telling us if the integration program is an obligation or optional choice. Exactly, that is the first problem that you are going to find. They are not there as an optional possibility. They are there because they have to. Thus, they don't want to be there with you. They even hate you because you are not their friend. You are kind of part of the system, and they do not need therapy. You are a psychologist who is going to give them therapy. They are fine as they are, and it is the system, the one that had made them to be there. So basically, at least at the beginning, I felt hated by them. I had people who told me, I am not going to listen to you. I am just going to come and sit here without listening, without paying attention. This is bullshit. I have to be sorry for my expressions, 1 fucking year here. I am not going to be able to work because as it is mandatory, they also have a schedule in which to come. And in this case, they were not in jail, they were outside jail. So they had to work. But as we were conducting these treatment programs during the mornings, so it was a problem for them to attend to our therapy sessions because they had to work during the mornings. So it was very, very difficult at the beginning to make them at least being part of the group, only being part of the group. Also, we are going to face a wide variety of personal situations because the program is, again, one size fits all, but all of them are going to come with different problems, with different personal situations. Some of them are only interested in having their children again. Some of them are only interested in finishing with the process and starting a new life. Some of them are only interested in whatever they are. And you have to generate a good rapport with them all, with rapport, a good therapeutical alliance, a good relationship with them all. Most of them are not going to accept the responsibility. They are there because their wives lied. They didn't tell the truth, so they were demanded, and because the system does not work well, they are there. But they have not done anything wrong. I think this is the most difficult problem to address. And I mean, I did this 4 years ago now, so they were not accepting my authority at all. All of them were older than me. So what was I going to teach them in order to live their lives? If I wasn't, of course, if I was not an expert in their lives, I was not even an expert in my life, what was I going to teach them? So this, I would say, are the most important problems that I faced on the situation. Danica was asking me if the therapy was delivered in one-on-one counseling practice or with a group. If we do follow the handbook, the first sessions are going to be one-on-one in order to promote this change, in order to motivate for a change, to generate a better therapeutical alliance. And later, we will move to a group-based therapy. So that in the end, exactly, at the beginning, it is just for building on working on the building on the relationship with the therapist, and later it is about using the rest of the participants to work on their change. So I just wanted you to think on how to deal with them, but as I am already reaching the hour speaking, I am going to tell you how I dealt with them. And the first rule, or at least my only rule, is or would appear under the motto of one ring to rule them all. The therapeutic relationship is the best thing you need to promote. Because at the beginning, as I said, they were saying, I am not going to listen to you, you're very young, you are not going to teach me anything, I am an expert in my life, so you have nothing to do with me. So I accepted that. My idea was that if I accept it, I mean, of course, it is not that I feel or that I believe that I am more expert in their lives than they are. They have been living their life, they know all their variables involved, or their situations, or their specific personal situations and characteristics. So of course, I am not going to teach them anything about how to live their life. And I do transmit them this as many times as I need. I am not going to teach them anything about their lives. I am just going to teach them things about psychology. Even if they accept or do not accept the responsibility, the fact is that they are under some troubles, that they are facing some situation that they do not want to face. So let's try to face this situation together, and since they are obliged to be there for 1 full year, let's try to take the most out of this year. And if you see, we are now not speaking about accepting responsibility, not speaking about fixing gender cognitive issues. We are not fixing about all these kind of violent things. We are just speaking about trying to help them. And this is the approach that I try to follow. Try to help you. How to help you? However you need to be helped. As I said, it is not about following the handbook, it is about tailoring the intervention. If you have some issues controlling your emotions, because most of them have problems in controlling their emotions, I am going to help you or to teach you some strategies on how to control your emotions. And a lot of time, I am not even going to mention controlling your emotions in inmate partner violence situation, because that would just give them a sense of that I am attacking them. So I would just teach them on how to control their emotions in general. So whenever they are driving their cars, so whenever they are going to the bank and they are not being attended, so whenever. And the idea is that they learn how to control their emotions. Maybe if they do not accept the responsibility, which should be the main aim of the program, but even if they do not accept the responsibility, I am helping them to know how to react if this happens again, so that they don't find themselves into the same situation. So if you see, I have stopped being the problem, I have stopped being part of the system, I have stopped judging them by locating myself in the position of someone who is there to help them in their lives, in the position who is someone who is there just to help them in this not happening again. And for me is not happening again for the victim, but what I transmit this to them is not having to see them here again, which is something that they hate and they don't want to see themselves. So I just try to share some tools with them in order to teach them what they can do for not this happening again. So in the end, with this, I am already saving this wide variety of personal situations as I am developing good therapeutical alliance, I will be able to locate. So this person has some problems with emotions, but this person is very good in controlling their emotions. So I can have this second person help the first one in sharing some of his strategies on how to control emotions. Because again, they are not accepting my authority. I have not lived their situations, but their group mates have. So whenever I can be quiet and I can have someone teaching some strategies for me, someone inside the group, that is going to be a lot or wide more efficient for fixing the situations or fixing the problems, because they have lived the same situation and they feel that other people are a lot more authorized than you to teach them how to deal with these situations. So even if the other groupmate is not sharing the best example ever, it is probably going to be a lot more accepted by the rest of the group if it is this group member and it is not me, the one who is sharing it. So I generally try to have others helping me in the groupal therapies. The thing about not accepting the responsibility have to arise from the same situation. So it is going to be very difficult for the therapist to make them accept that they have harmed someone. It is easy for the therapist to make them accept that they have had some problems or some dysfunctional dynamics. So starting from that dysfunctional dynamics or from these couple problems, you can start trying to accept this responsibility, and by listening the testimony provided by others, that is going to help a lot on accepting responsibility, which in the end is going to generate the therapeutical change. And this thing about the people not wanting to be there, it is something that you have to win over the sessions. Pretending, kind of pretending that you are the friend without losing the focus. They are going to listen more their friend than a therapist. So I will ask them about their personal life. I will show a lot of interest about their personal situations. If I know that someone is on a weekend visiting his daughter, on that Monday, I am going to ask or to show interest about this visit. I am going to show interest about the problems they might be facing, even if they are outside of the intimate partner violence situation. I am going to show interest on their lives. And with that, I will build on a friendship, on a therapeutical relationship in the end, without again losing the focus. So I will try to become their friends without accepting behaviors or without accepting thoughts that might go against the therapeutical objectives. So a lot of times I had to stop them speaking wrongly or badly or blaming on their ex-wives or the people who have demanded them. Even if I was their friend, or pretending to be their friend, I had to act as a therapist. But I think that this thing about working on the therapeutic relationship was the thing that worked the most, because these people, and that was something that at that point kind of made me cry, because that people the first time who were telling me, I am not at the beginning. I am not going to listen to you. You know nothing. I am just here because I am obliged to if I don't want to go to prison. I am not going to learn anything from you. These people ended up crying and saying that they didn't want the the therapy sessions to finish because they had learned a lot, not only about the intimate partner violence situations and how to avoid them, but also about their lives and how to deal with the problems in their lives. And it is true that even when I interviewed people of their context, they told me that they had changed a lot, that they were a lot more reflexive, that they were not so impulsive or not so emotional. And I truly believe that it was not that much because of all the information that appeared on the handbook, but because of the therapeutical relationship and all the different tools that we can provide them. But starting from that therapeutical relationship, because if I have not built it, they would have never learned it, because they would come to all the sessions with a shield protective without even trying to make any efforts for a change. And some of them even finish the sessions asking me for books so they can, even people who haven't finished their school, wanting to read books that they could continue with which they would continue learning. So for me that was impressive, and that was why I wanted to share this personal situation with you, because we can do a lot for preventing these situations, but we need the resources and we have to know how to do a lot, because I have also spoke with other colleges of mine who have been for years working on these programs, and that they have lost all motivation, and without motivation, without being able to build a therapeutical relationships, these programs are never going to work, because these people are obliged to go there. They are not someone who is suffering from depression and wants to feel happier. They are someone who are not suffering or might be suffering, but who do not think that they can be helped by anyone but themselves. And just to conclude, as take-home messages, I just wanted you to remember that all these inmate partner violence against women situations are very complex and multifaceted issues. So that trying to locate the specific variables that are going to help us in understanding them is going to be very complex. Looking for a specific typology or a specific explanation that can help us in understanding all this inmate partner violence situation is going to be almost impossible, but the more comprehensive we are, the better. And because of this, these tailored made approaches for prevention and intervention are going to be the best. So it is not about creating a handbook, it is not about creating just a risk prediction tool for them all. It is about interpreting the situations, and it is about interpreting the person that we have in front. And as I said, we will have to attend to the individual needs. We will have to consider the person we have in front. And it is something that we cannot do alone, because usually they are not going to pay for these therapeutic sessions. The money will have to come from the government, will have to come from the universities, will have to come from other projects, will have to come from other institutions. So collective efforts are going to be needed to bring a meaningful change. So it is a nonsense that I really want to generate a change if I am not receiving support from others. I might be very motivated, but I do need enough resources to work on this motivation. And with this, I finished. You have the bibliographic references here that I have used, and I am completely open for you for some questions and answers. I'm sorry if I have used more than an hour and I have bored you, because I know that I have spoken a lot, but I hope I have addressed some of the concerns you may have about this inmate partner violence, and I will answer any of your questions. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Manuel. Just before we started, I forgot to introduce myself. I'm Jennifer. I'm currently studying in psychology at University. And earlier, Manuel has explained how to understand intimate partner violence, from understanding it itself to differentiate between lethal and non-lethal victims and perpetrators, and even shares about your own experience. Well, for women, it could be physical injuries such as emotional traumas, long-term health, and so on.
And to prevent it, we have to first locate the multicultural phenomena, which is gender perspective, violence perspective, and ecological perspective. Well, thank you very much, Manuel, as that is a very insightful information. Well, I've got a few questions myself, and I'm pretty sure the audience has got a few questions too. We have opened the Q&A sessions. So if you have any questions, you could open your mic or type it in the Zoom meetings chat.
Ya, baik Bapak Ibu, teman-teman mahasiswa, kalau ada pertanyaan bisa langsung di chat box or you can raise your hand to ask the question directly to Manuel. Is there any question? Okay, there's one. Please, Jennifer, you can help Manuel.
Okay, there is a question from Giselda Natalia. Thank you very much for the insightful information. And what if the person meant to go through the reintegrations program, that person believed that they are not in the wrong for what they did? Like they feel, sorry, like they feel wrong for what they did. Like they feel what they did was just justified. For example, maybe they do the violence as punishment because their loved ones did something they think is wrong and don't feel any guilt for it. Because if they feel they're just justified, that'll be such a thought, please.
Absolutely, and it is not uncommon for me, at least in my personal experience. It was not uncommon at all to see this. I am not lying if I say that 80% of them thought that it was just a normal fight or it was just something very common to happen, and that they were not speaking about intimate partner violence or gender violence in this specific case. It was something normal for them. And as I said, my way of approaching this, remember that we were together 1 year. I would never start with trying to generate the responsibility on their acts at the beginning. I just try to start by teaching them tools on how to live their lives better. In these cases in which they feel bad, because all of them, it is true that all of them felt bad as how we can understand it, but as someone who goes to a therapy session, or bad as someone who is just a bit of depressed. So I just try to improve their emotional situation there. And by having them seen that I could provide them with tools that could help them improve their emotional status, their emotional situation, this made them a lot more approachable when speaking about the responsibility of their behaviors. This made someone a lot more approachable when speaking about that they had some problems, and that problems were causing them behavioral problems in their life, and that maybe one of that behavioral problems was that fight that they had with their wife. But this process that I have just mentioned in 30 seconds maybe took half a year. It is going little by little and trying to bring them to your field, as I said, by trying to build a therapeutic alliance or even this kind of pretending friendship, so that they are going to listen to you, and not only to you, but to the rest of the group mates who have already passed through the same situation. So very difficult to generate the guilt. That is, if they feel that they are not guilty, for my experience, it was almost impossible. I think I just generated this sense of guilt from 20 that I had, more or less, in 2 or 3, no more. But knowing how to deal with these situations if they happen again, I think I managed to do it with most of them. If not with 18, with 19. More questions?
Are there any more questions?
Well, Gary, before the questions and answer, asked about the support of the group as in an Alcoholic Anonymous. Absolutely, this is what I wanted to share. That sometimes, if you're young, as it was my case, they are not going to listen to you as much as they are going to listen to their group mates, and some of them have passed through the same situations and have dealt with them effectively. So sometimes new solutions arise that you as therapists might not even have thought of them, or that you have thought and are not the best solutions, but still is a non-harmful solution, and it is better if it is transmitted and encouraged by other members of the group. Absolutely.
Okay, thank you, Manuel, for the response. Keldianto, do you want to ask questions?
Yes, good morning, Mr. Morillo. Thank you for your insightful presentation just now. My question is actually correlated to Giselda's question just now. They tend to, in IPV, they tend to feel victimized, so they punish their partner. And in macro level, so in society level, they tend to believe what they want to believe, not in their actual fact. They just want to believe what they think that will benefit them. So there's many cases that they think it's okay to do something even though it shouldn't. Something like women hit a man, but the society will think, oh, it's nothing. It's only a normal thing. She's just touchy maybe, or she just playing. But if you reverse it, it's not, it's violence. My question is, how do we identify with the tool just now you have explained? How do we identify if it is really IPV, they receive as victim or their perpetrator? And for therapists, what can they do to, if they actually meet someone who victimized themselves, even though they are actually the doer? That's all.
Well, it is not really easy to distinguish between reality and simulation, but as forensic psychologists, we have always to consider this. So with the tool I presented you, usually, I mean, someone who is going to file a complaint, we start from the point that it is not going to lie. However, we are going to consider all the different variables involved in that situation. And as I said, as a forensic psychology, I will have to locate all the simulation strategies that the person might be using in order to obtain higher or bigger benefits. But usually the tool is just for when the situation has been proved to be true, and in order to prevent it to happen again, in order to prevent it to lead to homicide, because the last objective is to not to have a woman, not to have more women killed. So in this case, the tool, being honest, it is a lot more sensible than specific, so that it is going to locate a lot more or better those that are at risk than those false positives. So I don't mind that much that this tool give me a false positive, unless what I would want to transmit is that the tool is going to fail on some false positive and the benefit of those who are at risk. So that if after the tool failing in the false positive, we will have to test for the simulation or other malengineering strategies there. Okay. I don't know if I have asked your question more or less, have I?
Yes, thank you for your answer.
Thank you very much for your question.
Okay, thank you. We have more questions from Alia Harris. She said, if this happens in an environment where the victim doesn't support because the society is like that, how would it be possible to solve?
This is something, as I said at the end of the presentation, we have to work in combination, not only with the family, but also with the social services. So when the family is not there to give some advice or support to the victim, because society is like that, we as society, as part of the governmental programs, have to provide enough resources so that the victim can be independent, economically independent, so that they can access a job, and emotionally independent, so they can have access to a therapy in order to help them cope with this whole situation in which they might have invested 20, 25, 30, 40 years of their life, so that they see no other reality. But we have to, again, as society with some policies, show them that there is another reality. It is very difficult to solve because we cannot do it at an individual level, but it is possible to solve in terms of macro level. Thank you for your question.
Thank you. Next questions is from Putri Aurora. Thank you for the insight, Mr. Morillo. Speaking of gender-based violence, in Indonesia, sometimes we can't fully rely on our government to support us unless it goes viral. Hence, I would like to share one of the NGOs that specialize in helping victims. She said, hope it helps. And from Denika Natalista, you want to ask questions?
Hello, we are from Bekasi. This is of my class in clinical psychology. Maybe you can see our video. Class, you can wave to Mr. Manuel. We have a question in our class. Thank you for a very insightful session. We learned about how clinical psychology can help to change perpetrator to not do another violence again to their victims. Now, from the class, we have a question. So, please, do you want to answer question? Do you want to find your question?
Yes. Hello, my name is Madeline, and I have a question. So, what is the common fate of the children who are from households where intimate partner violence is
Happening.
Yeah, happening.
In Spain, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you
That's
very
it.
much for your question. It is a very good question because in the end we have to consider that this phenomenon, as I said, is not only affecting the victim, not only the society, but also the people who are near the victim, and moreover the people who should be protected by the victim and by the perpetrator. As I mentioned, what we are going to observe in children who have witnesses episodes of violence, usually, and from my own situation, interviewing them, what we are going to observe is that they will present some behavioral externalizing problems because they have learned that problems are solved by yelling to others, by beating others, by so on, by all these dysfunctional behaviors. So that in the end, children, as we said, are like sponges. They learn everything. If they learn at home that problems are solved this way, this is the way they have learned it. So it is going to be very difficult to change this way of acting. Of course, attending to the magnitude, this I would say that it is kind of the most normal issue that we see, and also not the components, but the most pervasive effect, so that the cycle of violence continues. But also, if we move towards a more internalizing or emotional level, what we are going to observe are common symptoms as those related to anxiety, depression. If it really affected them as a stressful situation, symptoms related to post-traumatic stress disorders, even some, if they are younger, some regressions on these normal functions of the body. But the problem that I would like you to remember is the learning, the problem with learning on how to deal with problematic situations. If you do not learn to deal effectively with them, you are going to suffer emotionally, and you are going to make others suffer either emotionally or physically. Thank you very much for your question, Miss.
Thank you so much for the answer.
Okay, is there any more questions from the audience? If you have any questions, you could raise your hand or type it in the chat. Okay, we have more questions from BMP. How to safely leave a relationship, partner violence.
It is true that I was saying that one of the variables that helped us in predicting homicide was the separation. So that is a very, very interesting question. And it is not something that, and I am honest with you, when I have answers, I will give them. In this case, I don't think I have a specific answer, because it will have to be tailored specifically in the situation. We will have to look at all the variables, all the violence related variables that are being generated in that specific situation, and we'll have to see or to observe the safer way. Because again, if we do give a one size fits all strategy in this case, I assure you that we are going to end up with a lot more violent situations than the ones that we see. But it is about, I would say, generating one. If I have to find one of the variables in which I would work on before leaving a relationship or something like that, would be in generating a good social support, or not in generating it, because it can also be difficult to handle, but in maintaining it when entering a relationship. Do not lose your friends, do not lose your family because of the relationship that you are generating. Once you have some social support, everything is going to be easier. But as I said, every case have to be addressed specifically. Sorry for not specifically answering your question, can be daddy, but this is the best answer I can provide.
It's okay. Thank you very much, Manuel. Is there anyone that wants to ask questions?
It is.
Okay, if there are no more questions, maybe my last questions would be, sometimes professional help doesn't help, or victims can't get or seek professional help. Are there any tips for people who are currently experiencing this?
I have not. I have worked with the bad guys. I have worked with the perpetrators, not that much with the victims, but just assessing or evaluating them. So I have to say that I am not an expert in this part of the field. But again, my best advice in this case, or the thing I saw the most, was that these people didn't have a wide social support, or at least the social support in which you can trust, you can believe, and that are going to be always there for you. So that they were developing this dependency the in all sides of their life. So I don't know if this is an advice, but I will just keep repeating the message I provided to the previous answer, trying not to lose this social support, because when that happens, I'm not going to say that everything is lost, but the main resource or the main tool you can use to escape from the situation or to deal or cope with the situation is going to be lost. And it is also about knowing, because sometimes family will promote this situation to happen. So again, not a single answer, but it is about knowing and trying to understand and reinterpret your your situation. Because sometimes, or at least in Spain, it tend to happen a lot, that family promoted the situations. No, this happens because it has always happened. This is normal. If your husband is beating you, it has also beaten me previously. So just cope with it and everything will be fine. And no, everything won't be fine. And maybe that social support is even worsening the outcomes. So it is about, again, assessing the most you can your situation and trying to find the best way out of it. But it is very difficult without access to therapy, without access to other social support. It is true that it is something very difficult because we tend to have some cognitive biases that do not allow us to see anywhere else but the situation that we have in front. I know that I haven't properly answer your question, Jennifer, but this is again the best I can do.
Okay, thank you
Thank
very
you
much.
very much.
And I guess there is no more questions from the audience. So thank you very much, Manuel, for coming today and explaining about this sensitive yet important topics to us Venusian and non-Venusians. Now I have to understand that this is a serious cause and we have to prevent it before it gets worse, right? And I hope the audience can now help others or maybe themselves that are currently struggling with intimate partner violence. If you're currently struggling with it, I know it's not easy to overcome your fear, but you could seek professional help so you can be better than ever. Well, thanks again, Manuel, and everyone that have come today in this webinar. Before we close this Zoom meeting, it will be a good idea for us to take a picture. To Miss Desita, place and time are given, and for everyone, you could please turn on your camera.
All right, everyone, please open your camera for our photo session. And please kindly hold your chat during this photo session.
Hey, yeah, let's open our camera. Be ready.
Okay, there are 4 slides. So please hold your smile until we finish. Okay, I hope everyone is ready. Say cheese. Slide 1. 1, 2, 3. Slide 2. 1, 2, 3. Slide 3. 1, 2, 3. And the last slide. 1, 2, 3. Okay, we are finished. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Desita. Now we are all set. Thank you very much, Manuel. I'm hoping all the best for you and your studies. And once again, thank you very much for everyone that has participated in this meeting. You can now leave the Zoom meeting, but don't forget to fill the exit ticket. So, Miss Melly.
Yeah, okay. All right. We have finished our seminar today. Thank you so much, Manuel, for the important information and knowledge for all of us. And also tadi ada Miss Danika. She also informed us about carilayanan.com for more information about the organization working to support Indonesia. And also tadi ada Miss Rira, Putih Aurira, that also share about the home bully ID Indonesia. I hope everyone can take the important message home. I really hope that we don't have to experience this or everyone around us to experience this, but this is definitely an important info for us to hold. Maybe we can help our friends or anyone around us from this seminar. Thank you so much once again. Don't forget to fill in the exit ticket, and we'll see you at on Friday, 31st May, because we will have one more seminar from Manuel about the forensic psychology. All right. Thank you all, and see you on Friday. Bye. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. Bye.
Ya udah. Udah, Pak, ya.
Keldi dan Kalif dan Desita Alea tolong standby di Zoom sampai semuanya nanti mengisi ya. Mungkin ditunggu sampai 11.10 gitu ya. Thank you. Thank you.